If you fight me on this, Arthur, you will never see Leo and Mia again. My son-in-law Mark said it like he was ordering coffee. Cold, casual. My daughter Chloe, my own flesh and blood, just watched. They thought I was a lonely old man, easily broken, rattling around in a house too big for me. They were about to learn that this old accountant knew how to balance the books, and I was about to teach them the true cost of betrayal. If this story finds you, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this world. My name is Arthur, and this is the story of how the dream I built for 40 years became a prison in 4 days. The key turned in the lock. A heavy, satisfying click. It was the sound of a promise kept, a promise to Eleanor. I pushed the heavy oak door open, stepped inside. The scent hit me first. Fresh paint, lemon polish, new beginnings. This was it. The house Eleanor and I had dreamed of since our wedding day. 40 years of saving, 40 years of careful planning. I stood in the foyer. Afternoon sun streamed through the large windows. Dust danced in the golden light. It was a beautiful house, spacious, elegant, high ceilings, gleaming hardwood floors. It was the kind of house I'd spent my career auditing the finances for, but never thought I'd actually own. I'm 66, a retired accountant. I live by the numbers, budgets, careful planning. This house was our biggest plan, but Eleanor should have been here. She passed away 18 months ago. It was sudden, a heart attack that stole the breath from her lungs, and the light from my life. We were months away from finalizing the purchase of this very house. When it happened, after she died, I almost gave up. I almost put the money back into the safe. Low-yield bonds where it had always been. Safe, predictable, but I couldn't do that to her memory. This house wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was our legacy. So I bought it. It took everything, the pensions, the investments, the life insurance, a significant amount of money. Enough to buy this 4-bedroom house in the Willow Creek neighborhood outright. No mortgage, just peace, quiet, and a place for our daughter Chloe and our guardian, Leo, and Mia, a place where they could feel the warmth of Eleanor's memory. That was the plan, but plans can be destroyed. I walked through the rooms. My footsteps echoed in the stillness. The kitchen, granite countertops. The breakfast nook Eleanor had loved in the blueprints. The fitting room, the fireplace where we planned to hang the Christmas stockings. It was perfect. It was also empty. I had moved in just yesterday. Most of my belongings were still in boxes, stacked neatly in the study. I was taking my time. I wanted to do it right. For her. Today I was expecting Chloe and her husband Mark. I had invited them over. The first time seeing the finished home, I anticipated Chloe's tears. Her joy, our shared dream realized. I was waiting for joy. I got something else entirely. The doorbell rang, a flutter of excitement in my chest. I opened the door, a wide smile on my face. But the moment they stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. It grew cold, tense. Chloe looked around. Her eyes were wide, but she wasn't happy. She was nervous, anxious. She hugged me tightly, but it felt rushed, forced. Mark didn't hug me at all. He walked right past me. His expensive shoes clicked loudly on the hardwood floors, inspecting the house as if he were the one conducting an audit. Mark worked in venture capital, a term he used loosely for his murky investment schemes. He was always chasing the next big deal, always talking about leverage and assets. He was loud, arrogant, and he had a way of making me feel small. Insignificant. He looked at my dream home like it was just another asset to exploit. Impressive, Arthur, very impressive, Mark announced. He rapped his knuckles against a freshly painted wall, a gesture of dominance, testing the walls. The craftsmanship is decent. He continued, you must have paid a premium in this market. Willow Creek is expensive. It's what Eleanor wanted, I said quietly. I led them into the living room. Yes, well, Eleanor had expensive taste, Mark chuckled. A dry, humorless sound. He sat down on the new sofa, without waiting to be invited. He spread his arms across the back, owning the room. 4 bedrooms, right? And 3 bathrooms? He asked. His eyes scanned the room, taking inventory, calculating the square footage. Yes, I said. I tried to keep my tone even. The master suite, 2 guest rooms, and the study. A lot of space for one man, Mark observed. Looking around critically, the words hung in the air, a silent accusation, a threat disguised as an observation. Chloe sat beside him, perched on the edge of the sofa, twisting her hands in her lap, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. "It's beautiful, Dad. Really," she whispered, but her eyes darted nervously to Mark. She wouldn't look at me. "I'm glad you like it," I said. I tried to smile. I was hoping Leo and Mia could stay over this weekend. We could set up the guest room for them. Mark ignored me. He stood up, started pacing the room, his energy restless, predatory. "Arthur, we need to talk about the arrangements," he said, stopping by the fireplace. "Arrangements? What do you mean?" I asked, confusion mixed with a growing dread. "About the living situation," Mark said, turning to face me. His expression was serious, his tone brisk, businesslike. "Chloe and I have a situation." I felt a familiar knot tighten in my stomach. Mark's situations usually involved money, and usually it was my money. "It's about my parents," Mark continued. "Frank and Linda. I knew them vaguely. Difficult people. Demanding, perpetually broke. Always relying on Mark to bail them out of their latest financial disaster. They were the kind of people who complained about the quality of the free champagne."
"What about them?"
I asked, cautiously. "They lost their condo," Mark said flatly. No emotion. "Bad investments. The foreclosure finalized yesterday." He paused, letting the words sink in. "They literally have nowhere to go." I was stunned. "That's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that." I meant it. "Despite their difficult nature, maybe I can help them find a small apartment nearby," I offered. "I know a good realtor." Mark laughed. A harsh, barking sound. It echoed in the large room. "An apartment? With what money, Arthur?" "Be realistic," he sneered. "They are broke, and their health isn't great. They need stability. They need family." He walked towards me, his eyes cold, calculating. "And you, Arthur, have this massive house. 4 bedrooms. He gestured around the room, as if it were already his. "You're just one man rattling around in an empty mausoleum." Mausoleum. The cruelty of the word hit me like a slap. This was Eleanor's sanctuary, our dream. He called it a tomb. My blood ran cold. I looked at Chloe. She flinched at the word, but said nothing. "Mark, this is my home," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I bought this for my retirement. I'd planned for quiet." "Your plans have changed," Mark snapped, his voice sharp, aggressive. The mask of civility dropped completely. "My parents need a place to live. They can have the east wing, the 2 guest rooms, and the bathroom." He made it sound so simple, so reasonable. "You won't even know they're here," he added. A blatant lie. Frank was loud, opinionated. Linda was critical, controlling. My peace would be shattered. "I can't, Mark," I said, shaking my head. "I'm sorry, I cannot have them living here." That's when he exploded. He stepped into my space, towering over me, his face turning red, an anger that seemed always ready to boil over. The air crackled with his aggression. I took an instinctive step back. "This isn't a negotiation, Arthur," he yelled. The sound echoed off the high ceilings, violating the peace of the house. "You think you can just hoard all this wealth while my parents suffer?" He spat the words at me. "This house was bought with Eleanor's money, too. Money that belongs to Chloe. It was our savings," I protested weakly. "Our retirement fund. Don't play the victim with me." He jabbed a finger right at my chest, hard. "My parents are moving in with you. Period." He paused. The ultimatum hung heavy in the air. Then he delivered the final blow, the one he knew would break me. His voice dropped to a hiss, low, menacing. "If you fight me on this, Arthur, if you turn my parents out onto the street," he leaned in closer. I could smell the expensive cologne he wore, the scent of arrogance. "You will never see Leo and Mia again. Do you understand me? I will cut you off completely." The threat hit me like a physical blow. My grandchildren, Leo and Mia, the only joy I'd left. The only connection to Eleanor that still breathed. The thought of losing them paralyzed me. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Chloe, pleading with my eyes. "Help me, please. Chloe, please, don't let him do this." Chloe looked at Mark, then at me. Her eyes were filled with conflict. But the conflict quickly dissolved into resignation. She was terrified of him, or worse, she agreed with him. "Dad," she whispered, avoiding my gaze, staring at the floor. "Mark's right. It's a big house. Frank and Linda are desperate. We have to help family."
She paused. "Please don't be difficult. Difficult. I was being difficult because I didn't want to surrender the home I had worked my entire life to buy. They had me cornered. They held the keys to my happiness, my grandchildren, and they were twisting them mercilessly. I needed time. I needed a plan. If I said no, they would walk out that door and take Leo and Mia with them forever. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I lied. I let my shoulders slump in defeat. I looked down at the ground. I put on the mask of a tired old man who had given up. The mask fit too easily. "Okay, Mark," I murmured. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. "If you say so. When are they moving in?" Mark's triumphant smirk was immediate. "Vicious. Good. That's settled," he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "They'll be here next Saturday. We'll coordinate the move." He clapped me hard on the shoulder, a gesture of dominance disguised as camaraderie. "You made the right choice, Arthur. Family takes care of family." They left shortly after. The moment the door clicked shut, I sank onto the sofa. The silence of the house screamed at me. I had just given away my peace, my freedom, my future. I looked at the framed picture of Eleanor I had placed on the mantelpiece. "What have I done, Elio?" I whispered. Tears blurred my vision. What have I done? I thought I had bought myself time. I didn't realize I had just opened the floodgates. The next week was a slow descent into a nightmare. Mark took my agreement as total surrender. His entitlement escalated rapidly. The intrusions began the very next day. I was in the study, trying to organize my paperwork. The quiet focus of numbers usually calmed me, but not today. I heard voices in the foyer. Loud voices. I walked out to find Mark, Frank, and Linda standing in the hallway. They hadn't knocked. Mark must have taken the spare key from Chloe. He had let himself into my home. The violation was absolute. "Arthur, good morning," Mark boomed, as if he owned the place, wanted to show the folks the layout, get them acquainted with their new home. Their new home. The words stung. Frank and Linda didn't even greet me. They immediately started inspecting the house, their expressions critical, dismissive. Linda was wearing white gloves. Actual white gloves. "It's quite dusty, isn't it?" Linda said. She ran a gloved finger along Eamon's sill. She showed me the smudge with disgust. "We'll need to hire a proper cleaning service. Arthur, you'll need to arrange that before we move in. And pay for it, of course." She didn't ask. She commanded. Frank walked into the living room. He ignored me completely. He immediately started fiddling with the thermostat. "Why do you keep it so cold in here?" Frank complained. His voice was gravelly. Loud. "I have circulation problems. We'll need it much warmer. 75 degrees at least. Day and night. I kept it at 68. Eleanor always preferred it cool. The thought of the house being stiflingly hot made my chest tight. They walked through my home as if it were already theirs, discussing renovations, furniture arrangements, how my routine would need to change to accommodate them. I stood there, silent, invisible in my own home. But the real battle was yet to come. The tension reached a boiling point when we reached the master suite. My bedroom, the room I had chosen because it overlooked the rose bushes. Eleanor had left. Linda walked in first. She peered into the ensuite bathroom. Her eyes lit up. "This will do nicely," she announced. "The natural light is good for my complexion, and the bathtub is much larger than the guest one. Frank needs his Epsom salt baths for his back." She walked over to the walk-in closet. "And this storage space is adequate." My heart stopped.
They weren't looking at the room, they were claiming territory. Mark stood behind them, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. He knew exactly what they were doing. This was a power play. Wait, I said. My voice was stronger this time. The shock was turning into anger. A cold, sharp anger I hadn't felt in years. This is my room. Mark turned to me. His smile was condescending, patronizing. Arthur, be reasonable. My parents are older. They need the comfort of the master suite. He gestured down the hall. You can take one of the guest rooms in the east wing. They're perfectly fine. Smaller, yes, but cozy. Cozy. He was banishing me to the guest wing of my own house. It was a defining moment. A line in the sand. If I gave them this, I would lose the last shred of control over my own home. I looked at the spot by the window where I planned to put Eleanor's reading chair. No, I said, firmly, I am the owner of this house, and this is my room. Your parents can use the guest wing, as we discussed. That is the arrangement. Mark's eyes flashed with anger. He took a step toward me. Linda gasped. Offended. How selfish, she exclaimed. After everything we've been through, you begrudge us a comfortable bathroom? We'll discuss this later, Mark hissed at me. He grabbed his mother's arm, clearly not wanting a full-blown argument, but the message was clear. This fight was not over, and he intended to. They left shortly after. The atmosphere was thick with resentment. The silence they left behind was heavy, toxic. The incident only strengthened my growing realization. This was impossible. But they still held the grandchildren hostage. I was trapped. Then the financial demands started. The next day, Mark called me. I was making breakfast, toast and coffee. Arthur, we need to talk about the budget, he said. His voice brisk, professional, the venture capitalist closing a deal. I've drawn up an estimate of my parents' monthly expenses. Expenses? I asked. Food, utilities, medications, entertainment, cleaning services, car insurance. It comes to about $3,000 a month. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. $3,000? I choked out. A month? Mark, my pension is careful, but it's not extravagant. I hadn't budgeted for this. I can't afford that. You can afford it, Arthur, Mark retorted. His voice was cold, hard. You bought this place outright. You have plenty of money sitting in the bank, earning pathetic interest. He knew my financial situation. Chloe must have told him everything. The betrayal stung. You can afford to support them, he continued. It's the least you can do. They are family. Family. The word he used as a weapon. I gripped the phone tightly. I will cover the utilities and basic groceries, Mark. That is generous. But I will not fund their lifestyle. They need to contribute their own fixed income. Mark scoffed. Their income barely covers their debts, thanks to your generation ruining the economy. The hypocrisy was staggering. Don't be cheap, Arthur. Then came the next threat, the one that terrified me even more than the first. If you can't handle the finances, Mark said, his voice smooth, maybe I should take over managing your accounts. Ensure everything is handled properly. Power of attorney. The threat was blatant. He wasn't just asking for money. He was demanding control over everything. I'll handle it, I said curtly. I hung up the phone. My hands were trembling. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't just about moving in. This was about a complete takeover. They saw me as a weak old man, an easy target, a walking ATM. Elder abuse, plain and simple. I realized then that I was in a fight for my life, and I was losing. I knew I needed help. I needed someone who knew how to fight dirty. I called Susan. Susan was my lawyer. But more importantly, she had been Eleanor's best friend since college. Susan was sharp, pragmatic, and fiercely loyal. We met at her office the next morning. Downtown, a sleek, modern office. I laid it all out for her. The threats, the intrusions, the demands, the financial exploitation. I'd ashamed saying it all out loud. Ashamed that I had let it get this far. Susan listened patiently. Her expression grew darker with every detail. When I was finished, she sighed heavily. Arthur, she said. Her voice was filled with concern and anger. Mark is a predator, a textbook narcissist, and he's using your love for the grandchildren as leverage. I know, I said. I rubbed my tired eyes. But I feel trapped, Susan. If I fight him, I lose Leo and Mia. I can't lose them too. He's counting on that, Susan said. Her voice hardened. He's using your heart against you. But Arthur, she continued, do you really want to live the rest of your life like this?
As a prisoner in your own home, watching Mark bleed you dry.
That's not living. That's a hostage situation. She was right. The thought of living like that for the next 20 years made me feel physically ill. What do? I asked. Desperate. We need to analyze this tactically, Susan said. What is Mark's primary objective? Control over your assets. And the biggest asset you have right now is that house. The house, I repeated. Eleanor's house. I know, Arthur. Her voice softened. But right now, that house is a liability. It's the bait that drew Mark in. If we want to stop him, we have to remove the bait. I stared at her. The realization dawned on me. It was radical. Terrifying. You mean, sell the house, I whispered. The thought was physically painful, like losing Eleanor all over again. It's the cleanest solution, Susan said gently. If you don't own the house, they can't move in. It neutralizes the immediate threat. It cuts off his plan at the knees. But it was our dream, I said. Tears welled up in my eyes. Eleanor's dream was your happiness and peace. Arthur, not the bricks and mortar, Susan said firmly. Elle was the strongest woman I knew. She would want you to protect yourself. She would want you to fight back. I knew Susan was right. Eleanor would never want me to live as a victim. The plan Susan laid out was brilliant, risky, and absolutely terrifying, but it was the only way out. If this story has resonated with you so far, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories to light. It was time to fight back. We had to move quickly, discreetly. We had less than a week before Saturday. Susan got to work immediately. She called a real estate contact, a man named Mr. Harrison. He specialized in quick, discreet sales. We need a unicorn, David, she told Harrison. A cash buyer, closing in 3 days. No contingencies. Harrison connected us with an investment group, a property management firm looking for luxury rentals. They toured the house that afternoon. They offered a cash sale, slightly below market value, but it was clean. Fast. I accepted the offer on the spot. While the sale of the house proceeded, the pressure from Chloe and Mark intensified. They were completely oblivious. They still thought they had won. Chloe called me the next day. Her voice was strained. Dad, Mark wants to know if you've arranged the cleaning service yet, she said. Linda is very particular. I was sitting at my kitchen table, signing the preliminary sales documents. Susan had couriered over. My hand was steady. I haven't had time, Chloe, I said. I tried to keep my voice even, calm. Dad, please, she pleaded. The emotional blackmail was agonizing. You're making things so hard for Mark. He's stressed. Why are you being so slow with everything? She was choosing Mark, again. I'm doing my best, Chloe, I said. I hung up before she could hear the tremble in my voice. The pain of her betrayal was sharp, but it also strengthened my resolve. Meanwhile, Susan and I were working on the second part of the plan, the money. Selling the house wasn't enough. As long as I had significant assets, Mark would find a way to exploit me. He would use the grandchildren as leverage again. We needed to disappear the money. First, we protected the grandchildren. We created an irrevocable trust for Leo and Mia. A significant portion of the money from the house sale. If for college, enough for a start in life. Mark and Chloe could not touch it. Ever. It was managed by Susan. Ironclad. That felt good. Protecting Eleanor's legacy for the people she loved most. The rest of the money. The vast majority of it. I donated it. I gave it to the local hospice center where Eleanor had volunteered for years. They were building a new wing. I met with the director, Dr. Lee. A kind woman with tired eyes. Mr. Sterling, this is extraordinary, Dr. Lee said, stunned, as I handed her the check. This will save lives. It's in honor of my wife, Eleanor, I said. It was a way of turning this nightmare into something positive, something beautiful, that left me with just enough to live simply. Very simply. My pension and a small savings account. I was no longer a rich old man. I was just an old man, and that was fine by me. The final step was finding a new place to live. I found the perfect place. A small, charming cottage in an older neighborhood across town. It had a fireplace, a small garden, rose bushes, and most importantly, it was affordable. The day before the move-in day, Friday, everything was finalized. The Willow Creek house was officially sold. The funds were transferred. The trusts were established. The donation was made. And I had the keys to the cottage. I spent the day moving my essential belongings out of the Willow Creek house. I didn't have much. My clothes, my books, Eleanor's keepsakes, a few pieces of furniture I truly loved. Everything else, the new furniture, the expensive sofa Mark had sat on, I left it all behind, included in the sale. It was just stuff. As I packed the last box, I felt a wave of relief washing over me. I was escaping. I was free, but the relief was quickly covered by a profound sadness. I knew what was coming, the explosion, the fracture in my relationship with Chloe that might never heal. I was choosing my freedom over my daughter. It was the hardest choice I ever made. I called Chloe one last time, hoping for a chance to explain, to soften the blow. "Chloe, honey, we need to talk about the move tomorrow," I said. Her voice was bright, cheerful, excited. "Oh, Dad, we are so excited. Mark's parents are packed and ready. They are so grateful to you." My heart sank. She was completely oblivious. I couldn't do it. I couldn't tell her over the phone. "I'll see you tomorrow, sweetheart," I whispered, the lie heavy on my tongue. I locked the door of the Willow Creek house for the last time. I touched the oak door, a pang of sadness for the dream that had died there. But as I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The house disappeared from view, and I felt a growing sense of peace. I was free. Now I just had to face the storm. The next day was Saturday, move-in day. I drove back to the Willow Creek house one last time. Susan was already there, waiting for me in her car. She was there as my legal representation and as my friend. "Are you ready, Arthur?" she asked. "I am," I said. My voice was steady. I felt a strange sense of calm, the calm before the storm. We waited in the driveway. I was ready. At exactly 10 a.m., a large moving truck pulled up to the curb. Loud, obnoxious. It was followed closely by Mark's expensive SUV. I watched as they got out of the car. Mark was smiling. Triumphant. The conquering hero. Chloe looked relieved. Frank and Linda climbed out of the back seat. Slowly, already complaining about the drive. They walked up the driveway, so focused on the house, on their prize, that they didn't see the subtle changes at first. They didn't see me and Susan standing there, waiting. Mark was leading the charge, keys in hand, the old keys he used to invade my home. He reached the front door. He inserted the key into the lock. It didn't turn. He frowned, jiggled the key, tried again. Nothing. "What's wrong with the lock?" he muttered. Frustrated, annoyed, that's when Chloe looked up. She finally saw me. Then she saw the sign. She gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. They all stopped in their tracks. It wasn't just the changed lock. It was the small, discreet sign planted in the front lawn, almost hidden by the rose bushes Eleanor loved. Property managed by Elite Rentals. No vacancy. And it was the sight of a stranger. A young woman, Sarah, the new tenant, walking past the living room window inside the house. She was carrying a coffee mug. The silence was absolute, deafening. Mark stared at the sign, then at the window, then at me. His face went through a rapid transformation. Confusion, shock, and then to a deep, boiling crimson rage. What is this?" he stammered, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. "Arthur, who is in the house, the new tenant," I said calmly. My voice cutting through the silence. Clear, strong. "She moved in this morning. Tenant." Mark shrieked, his voice cracking. "This is your house. This is our move-in day." "No, Mark," I corrected him gently. "This was my house, and I sold it." Frank and Linda looked bewildered, lost. Linda clutched her purse, looking like she was about to faint. Sold it? Chloe whispered, her eyes wide with horror, tears welling up. Dad, you sold the house? But you agreed. I pretended to agree, Chloe, I said, my voice filled with genuine pain. I had to. You gave me no choice. You threatened to take my grandchildren away from me, I continued. You let your husband bully me, disrespect me, and try to steal my home. My dream. Mark was spiraling. He stormed towards me, his hands clenched into fists. I thought he might hit me. Susan immediately stepped forward, positioning herself between us. That's enough, Mark, she said, her voice sharp, authoritative. I suggest you calm down. Any aggression will be met with legal action. You, Mark pointed at Susan. You did this. You manipulated him. You turned him against his own family. I advised the client on how to protect himself from financial exploitation and elder abuse. Susan retorted coldly, but my parents, Mark yelled, gesturing wildly at Frank and Linda. They have nowhere to go. What are they supposed to do? That is not my concern, Mark, I said. You snake, Mark spat. You manipulative old man. You think you can just walk away with all that money? The proceeds from the sale? He lunged forward again. Susan held up her hand. We'll sue you, he screamed. We'll take everything you have. We'll say you're senile. You can try, Susan said calmly, but you won't succeed. Arthur has reorganized his assets, as is his right. What assets? Mark demanded, his eyes darting around desperately. Looking for leverage, the money from the sale. Where is it? It must be millions, I looked him straight in the eye. It's gone, Mark, I said quietly. He stared at me, his eyes bulging with disbelief. Gone? What do you mean, gone? I donated it, I said, to the hospice center, where Eleanor volunteered. They are building a new wing in her name. I chose to honor her memory instead of funding your greed. The realization hit Mark like a physical blow. He stumbled back, his face pale. The money was gone. The house was gone. The leverage he thought had vanished before his eyes. He had nothing. He turned to Chloe, his face twisted in a snarl. This is your fault. You let him do this. You didn't control your father. Chloe looked up, her face streaked with tears. She looked devastated, but for the first time, I saw a spark of defiance in her eyes. A spark of Eleanor. No, Mark, she whispered, her voice shaking, but clear. This is your fault. You pushed him too far. You treated him like a piggy bank, not a father. You threatened him with the grandchildren. Mark stared at her, stunned by her betrayal. He had lost control of her, too. He turned to his parents, who were watching the scene unfold with growing horror and shame. Come on, Mark muttered. Defeated, broken. We're leaving. He stormed back to his SUV, slamming the door shut. Frank and Linda, looking tired and defeated, followed him silently. Chloe hesitated. She looked at me, a mixture of betrayal, devastation, and regret. I love you, Chloe, I said softly, and I protected Leo and Mia. Susan will explain the trust fund to you. It's for them. It's safe. Mark can never touch it. She didn't answer. She just stood there, crying silently. Then she turned and walked slowly towards the SUV. She got in. They drove away, the moving truck awkwardly backing out of the street, following them. The silence returned, heavy, profound. Susan put a comforting hand on my shoulder. We watched them go. You did it, Arthur, she said. You're free. I know, I said, watching the dust settle on the driveway. But the cost was so high. I had lost my daughter. Maybe forever. I got into my old sedan. I drove away from the Willow Creek house for the last time. I drove back to my cottage. My true home. The afternoon sun was streaming through the windows, illuminating the small living room. It was quiet, peaceful, safe. It smelled like old books and coffee. My smells. I unpacked the last box. It contained Eleanor's photographs. I took out our favorite picture, the one from our 25th anniversary. We were dancing, laughing, so in love. I placed it on the mantelpiece above the small fireplace. I sat down in the comfortable armchair, my armchair, looking at her smiling face. Tears welled up in my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of grief for the daughter I had lost, but also of gratitude for the life I had reclaimed. It wasn't the dream house we had planned. It was smaller, it was older, but it was mine. Entirely mine. I realized then that true wealth wasn't about square footage. It wasn't about the numbers in a bank account. It was about freedom. It was about peace. It was about dignity. We did it, Eleanor, I whispered, tracing her face on the glass. I protected what was truly ours. I leaned back in the chair, closed my eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the silence, not as a scream, but as a comfort. I was home. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.